Hello students, in this video I'm going to explain the revision worksheet 3, chapters 5, 6 and 11. Okay, so let's look at this particular chapter, chapter 5, Understanding Diversity of Organisms. So the first question asks, which of the following is not a benefit of biodiversity to humans? Remember, biodiversity means the idea of having many different species of animals or organisms around the world. Okay, so the main reason why we would like them is because number one, they produce medicine. Okay, number two, they provide lots of raw materials. Then number three, they are mainly the food sources for humans as well. So biodiversity actually has no relationship to the land, providing land to the industry. Again, hence this is not the answer. Question 2. Which of the following can result in a loss of biodiversity? Remember, biodiversity means lots of species of organisms. So any form of harm that comes to organisms, plants or animals will affect the biodiversity. So widespread diseases is a main problem, okay, that might affect the biodiversity. Clearing of forests for buildings, okay, is definitely harming the biodiversity as well, because it will chop off the trees which are organisms. That's for one. Number two, it affects the natural habitats of animals. Okay, the removal of harmful species is not a threat to biodiversity, as it actually helps biodiversity. Okay, so that is not what we want, and hence C is our answer. Which of the following are reasons for the extinction of some plants and animals? Okay, so very quickly, all the answers here are actually the things that we need. So D is our answer. Question 4. Which of the following is not a method to preserve biodiversity? So objective is to preserve biodiversity. So human beings, we have lots of laws to protect biodiversity. Okay, for example, no poaching in Africa. Okay, no catching of crabs of certain size in Australia. Okay, encouraging classmates to keep our beaches clean. So this one is actually in line with protecting the natural habitat of the animals. Okay, so B is actually a good way to preserve biodiversity. Rescuing animals from pet shop and releasing them to the environment, this is not a good way. Okay, and hence is our answer. So many times it actually does more harm than good. So the animals that was released, they are released into the wild from the pet shops. Okay, can be an invasive species. Okay, a very good example would be if you go to the Bedok Reservoir Park. Okay, there are some terrapins inside the water. Okay, and these terrapins are actually carnivorous. Okay, so they actually eat the fish that are inside the pond itself. Okay, but the fish itself is actually there because we want to control the mosquito breeding, okay, in the reservoir itself. So if we put too many terrapins inside, it will actually kill off all these fishes, which are actually useful for us, and it's actually a very good portrayal of biodiversity, the importance of biodiversity. Okay, question 5. Which of the following statements is not the objective of classification? Okay, so why do we want to classify? Okay, basically we want to make it easier for us to understand things. Okay, so if your only objective, okay, is to help to differentiate living things from non-living things, then this is actually not what we want for classification. Okay, which is actually the answer that we need. Okay, while the others, okay, are actually the true objectives of classification. Question 6. Okay, organisms are classified according to their fundamental features. Okay, which of the following is not a reliable feature for classification? Okay, so if you look at all this, okay, size of organisms is actually not a very good classification way, because animals do grow, okay, and of course certain animals have certain size limit. If you use size as a classification tool, it is not reliable, because if I accidentally picked up a small terrapin that is about 1 cm compared to a very old terrapin that is maybe 10 cm, and I use size to compare them, they may become classified as two different species, which is not what we want. Okay, so that's why A is the answer that we need for this question. Okay, question 7 is on the dichotomous key. Okay, so the job of the dichotomous key is to separate groups of organisms into two different groups, and from there further classify them into two smaller groups until we reach the final animal that we need. Okay, so which animal is likely to be a herbivore and does not hunt for food? So if you follow through, okay, herbivore, they are animals that does not hunt, that does not need to hunt for animals. So they are most likely don't have the retractable claws. Okay, and because retractable claws means the claw can come out and go in. So like the cat, okay, cat has retractable claws, okay, while the lion does not have. Okay, so these animals usually does not need these claws. Okay, so if you look at the retractable claws, okay, it's very unlikely, okay, that they actually need any. Okay, so no retractable claw. Okay, yep. Okay, so if you look at the rest, okay, the only other thing that we can look at is also the teeth. Okay, whether there is a meat-eating teeth or not. So if there's no meat-eating teeth, most likely it's going to be a herbivore. Hence, this last option, okay, would be the answer. Part 8, question 8. Which of the following statements is correct of these two groups of animals? So if you look at the two groups of animals here, this is the earthworm, this is a frog. Okay, so there are many differences between these two animals. So we have to read the options very carefully. Okay, so after you read the options very carefully, you realize that A is our best answer. Okay, because the earthworm does not have any backbones, while the frog do have backbones. Okay, so this is our best option. Okay, if you look at B, earthworm is cold-blooded, frog is cold-blooded as well. So this is not true. Okay, group Y is not warm-blooded. In group X, okay, group X lay eggs while animals in group Y give birth to live young. This is not true, because frogs do give, in fact, frogs give birth to their young through the eggs, okay, which will in the end hatch to tadpoles. Okay, animals in group X give birth to young, while animals in group Y lay eggs. This is not true as well, because for earthworm, they actually also hatch from eggs. Question 9. Which of the following statements best explains why an organism is classified as a mammal? Okay, so we know mammals are warm-blooded. Okay, it breathes through lungs. Okay, so if you look through the options very carefully, okay, C is our best answer. Okay, so because of our warm blood, okay, we are able to regulate the temperature of our own body. Question 10. Animal P lays eggs in water. It breathes through the skin when young and through its lungs as an adult. Although it has a rough skin, most of its relatives have smooth and moist skin. It tends to live in moist places. So you look through all these eggs. Okay, there are clues here. Eggs, gills when they are young. Okay, after that they develop lungs as they are adults. Okay, and the other one that probably might have some hints would be talking about the rough skin. So if you look through all the options here, okay, this seems like it would be describing some form of toad or frog. Okay, so that's why C is our best option. Okay, for reptiles, okay, reptiles do not breathe through gills when they are young. So automatically reptile is out of the question. Fish breathe through gills their whole life. So they don't usually develop lungs except for one fish called the lungfish. Okay, and last but not least, the insect. Okay, some insects do have young that live in water, but most of them do not have gills. So question 10A is not our answer as well. So leaving C as the best option. Question 11. Now, if you look through this particular dichotomous key, okay, it is very detailedly classifying all the animals, okay, in this particular question. Okay, so 11A, they ask why, state 2 reasons why classification is necessary in plants and animals. Okay, so it's basically asking why do we use the dichotomous key. Okay, so why do we want to use it? Okay, so the main reason is actually these two. Okay, where number one is actually easier to study animals. Number two, we can actually easily classify or identify the characteristics of animals from this dichotomous key. Okay, part B, explain why classification chart is shown as a dichotomous key. Basically, it's easy to split animals into groups of two. Okay, and from there we can easily work out the classifications. Okay, now let's look at part C. Part C would like us to identify the fishes based on the dichotomous key that was given above. Okay, so if you look at the first fish here, the body has spots. Okay, on top of that it has large mouth. Okay, so if you look through the options here, okay, the body with spots is here and with large mouth is here, so this gives us the name as a grouper. Okay, so it's easy. You notice that it's easier. Okay, with the characteristics that is very clear, we can actually go through the dichotomous key and find the correct options that we need. Okay, next one. This particular fish does not have any spots. You notice that the tail, okay, is also fork-like. Okay, on top of that, if you look carefully, this doesn't look like it is very elongated. Okay, so let's go through and check what do we need. Okay, so body without spots. Okay, it is fork tail. Okay, look like fork because you have two splits there. Does it have an oval body or does it have an elongated body? So I would say that this is more of an oval body. Okay, so if you look carefully, it looks like oval. Okay, so therefore, if I go to oval body, you actually point to the pomfret. A very yummy fish indeed. Okay, next one, if you look at this particular fish, is elongated. Okay, this particular fish is elongated. So if you go through that option, it's an elongated body. Okay, and let's go down. Okay, so now you have two options to choose from. Body is almost straight and body is tapered. Okay, so if you look at this one, is the body straight or tapered? So it looks straight, so therefore based on the classification, it will be a herring. Okay, and last but not least, okay, if you look through all the options here, okay, it has a unforked tail. See, this is very flat like a triangle. It doesn't have a fork like the herring, okay, or the pomfret. So if I go through this option again, it is body without spots, it is unforked tail, and look at this, now is being divided into dorsal fin is divided and dorsal fin is not divided. Okay, so let's look at the dorsal fin. Okay, dorsal fin is the fin at the top here. Okay, the tip fin at the top here doesn't look like it's being divided. Okay, it looks like one big chunk. Okay, so I would think that the best answer would be the red snapper. Okay, yeah, so it's very easy to use the dichotomous key. Okay, part D, using the information from the classification chart, describe the features of a macro. So let's check. Okay, where is the macro? Okay, so if I run through all the options, okay, macro is over here. So you go back up, you actually identify that this is actually a characteristic of the animal. So it has a tapered body, it has an elongated body, okay, it has a forked tail, and is a fish without spots. Okay, so that's what you need to write. Okay, so it is a fish without spots, has an elongated tail, and has an elongated body. Okay, my bad. It has an elongated body, and is tapered. Okay, which is actually what the classification was giving us. Okay, so next one, question 12. Again, a dichotomous key. I already filled out some of the things here. Okay, what I want to bring focus is this particular option, two options here in the center. Okay, so snail is quite clear cut because snail doesn't have any legs. Okay, but those with legs 1, 2, 3, these three animals, organisms has legs. Okay, in fact the centipede has many legs. Okay, but ant and bee doesn't have. Okay, so if I look at these three animals, what is the most distinctive feature between the three of them? Okay, how do I differentiate into two different groups? Okay, so if I look through, okay, there are a few possibilities I can think of. Okay, the first one, the centipede, if you look at their legs, they have many legs, while the ants have ant and bee have three pairs of legs. So this is actually one possibility. Another possibility would be if you look at the body very carefully, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, insects have 3 segments of the body, while for a centipede, it has many segments. Okay, so there are a few options that you can write on. Okay, please write them down clearly. Okay, so I will choose the segments one. Okay, I'll choose that segment one, but of course other reasonable ones we will be allowing that as well. For question 13, you really need to read through all the words here, all the sentences here, and from there you should be able to arrive at this particular dichotomous key. Okay, it is very straightforward, so I'm not going to go through in detail. Okay, so let's move on to the next chapter. Okay, the next chapter is about model of cells. Okay, so if you look through very carefully, okay, let's look at number 1. Okay, is true about a partial permeable membrane. That means only allow some things to pass through, okay, but not all. Okay, so so which of these is true? So it does not allow any particle to pass through. This is not true because the membrane does allow some things to pass through. It sometimes allow all particles to pass through. This is not true as well because of the word all. Okay, it allows particles to pass through, yes and no. Okay, again the word all. Okay, and last but not least, it allows some small particles to pass through, which is what we want. Okay, now which structure controls the entry and exit of substances? Okay, so this one is actually talking about the cell membrane, which is actually B. Okay, so this one is very clear cut. I'm not going to explain in detail. Okay, question 3. Okay, question 3. Okay, question 3, you notice that down here, this particular cell is an animal cell. Okay, but structure X is also found in plant cells. Okay, so if you look at all these, you will know that this is actually the vacuole. Okay, so vacuole actually stores nutrients, okay, and basically is providing food for the cell itself. Okay, so if you look through the options, okay, C would be the best one, because if I talk about vacuole in a plant, is a very huge. Okay, let me draw a very quick plant cell. Okay, the vacuole would be huge like this. Okay, so compared to animal cell, which has many small ones, okay, the plant cell has a very big one. Okay, and usually in plant cells, it will store the cell sap. Okay, so slightly different, but it still provide the nutrients for the plant cell. Okay, question 4. Which of the following characteristics is true for a cell wall? Look carefully, it's a cell wall now. Okay, cell wall is quite rigid. It will able to hold the shape of the plant cell itself. Okay, so let's read through which one is the best option. Okay, so the cell wall actually does not restrict any movement of the substances through the cell. This is the job of the cell membrane. Part B, they are made out of cellulose, which cannot be digested by animals easily. This is actually our answer. C, they support the cellular structure in animal cells from bursting. This is not true because of the word animal. If I change the word from animal to plant, then it will be true. Okay, they are found in some animal cells. This is not true because all animal cells doesn't have the cell sap. It doesn't have the vacuole. Sorry, it doesn't have the cell wall. Sorry. Question 5. Everyone in the Chua family has long legs. Okay, and this characteristic is attributed to genes. In which structure can genes be found? So if I look back at the diagram of a cell, okay, where is the cell, where is the genes found? Okay, do you see all these wiggly little things that is inside the cell? Okay, these are actually the chromosomes which will contain the genes, okay, that is required to pass on to the young. Okay, so if I look through the option, A would be the answer because chromosomes are contained in the nucleus. Okay, which of the following shows the structure in order of increasing complexity? Okay, so basically this one is the level of hierarchy. Okay, and cell, if I have many cells together, we form a tissue. I have many different tissues form together, we form an organ. Okay, so that's why the best option is B. Okay, question 7. Arrange the following body structure in order of increasing complexity. Again, okay, it's a hierarchy thing. Okay, so you just need to arrange in order. So if you look through very carefully, cells first, followed by tissue. Cells first, followed by tissue. Tissue followed by organ. Okay, and followed by system. Many organs together form a system. So best answer is B. Which statement about division of labor is or are true? Okay, so remember, division of labor is actually to make things easier for the body to do, for the body to carry out tasks. Okay, so basically each cell in the body will do its own part, and together, when it's done correctly and efficiently, okay, all of them carry out at the same time, then the task can be done. Okay, so if you look through, all organisms have division of labor. Okay, this is true. Okay, because the cells in organisms would be doing the division of labor. Specialized cells have different functions from each other. This is true, like your heart cell and your brain cell. Okay, they do different tasks, totally very different tasks. Okay, so there is no relationship or not much relationship with them, and the brain nervous system cell cannot do the part of the heart cell. Okay, so you have to be very aware of all this. Part 3, it allows organisms to carry out more complex tasks. That's true. Okay, like our fingers, in order for us to grip, we can do this, but all this requires all the cells in the body, in my hands here, to function well together through the division of labor. Okay, part 4, it ensures that the organisms look different from other organisms. This one has no part to play in division of labor. Question 9, which of the following statements are best examples of division labor? If you read through everything, D is our best answer. Okay, basically all of them, okay, are showing the division of labor. Question 10, in which of the following organisms, division of labor is least shown. Least, that means very little. Okay, so if you look through, fungi is complex. Okay, it has many different types of cells. Okay, even has the spores to make it grow. So it's actually quite complex. Snake, same thing. Snake is a very big organism. Snail as well. But the amoeba, okay, is not. Amoeba is the cell that can the organism that is just a cell, one cell. Okay, that can be separated from each other to diversify itself. Okay, question 11. Okay, this is a leaf, the cell obtained from the plant leaf. Okay, you can see again down here, this one is the vacuole, very big one. Okay, but this cell has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different extra things here other than the nucleus. Okay, so these extra things are actually called chloroplasts. Okay, so chloroplasts, just label them clearly. Okay, where's the cell wall? Cell wall is right at the outside here. Okay, its job is to hold the cell in shape. Okay, part B, quite straightforward. You need to know the differences. Okay, please write them out clearly as you going along. Part C, describe the role of chlorophyll in photosynthesis. So we know that chlorophyll is actually required. Okay, so what's the job of the chlorophyll? Is basically to trap the light energy, to absorb the light energy. Okay, so that the plant cells can use later on to do respiration. Okay, so that's question 11. Okay, question 12. This funny organism again. Okay, so let's see the question. Okay, explain why it might be identified as a plant. So do remember, plants have cell walls, they have a big vacuole. So those are options that you can think of. Okay, so if you look through, the best answer would be to say that they have chloroplasts. Because they have chloroplasts, okay, they definitely plant cells already. Okay, part 2. Why is this an animal cell? Okay, animal cells are a bit harder to really distinguish here. Okay, other than this extra flagellum, okay, which is like the sperm cell. It has a sort of a tail for it to move around. So this is a distinct feature of animal cells. Okay, part B, suggest the importance of the nucleus in the organism for the purpose of reproduction. Again, remember reproduction. Okay, reproduction is the part where we need to pass genes to the young. Okay, so that is actually our answer. Okay, it contains chromosomes that is required to be passed on. Okay, from parent to child. Okay, let's look at the next question, question 13. Okay, what is an organ made up of in an organism? So if you think through about the hierarchy, okay, one cell is one cell, but same cells come together, they form a tissue. Many different the tissues come together, they form an organ. Okay, so now we are talking about organs. So basically, organ is made up of tissues. Okay, and it must be different tissues. Okay, so organs are made up of different tissues working together. Okay. Okay, next one, name a system in our body and 3 of the organs that made up the system. So the main one that we have studied in the particular chapter is digestive system. Okay, so just name your parts of the digestive system. For example, your stomach, small intestine, gallbladder, liver. Okay, all these are actually the organs in our body, and it forms part of the digestive system. Okay, but also take note, liver and gallbladder are not actually integral to the digestive system. They are supporting organs for the digestion. Okay, part B, part 1, again division of labor. So the idea of division of labor is very clear. You need to tell us, or you need to explain that basically the objective is to break down the work into smaller parts to maximize the efficiency. Okay, so why is it important for an organism? Okay, because other than it gets things done efficiently, all these can be done at the same time. So this is the key idea that you need to present. Okay, so going to the last chapter over here, this is chapter 11 about the human digestive system. Okay, which of the following is not true about a specific digestive enzyme? Okay, so they are talking about enzymes, okay, in particular a specific one. Okay, so enzymes are actually not made out of proteins, they're actually made out of special chemicals. Okay, it speeds up chemical reaction. This is not true. Sorry, this is oh, wrong. I'm sorry, I remember it wrongly. Okay, okay, let me start this part again. The digestive system, the enzymes are mainly made up of certain types of proteins, okay, that come together. Okay, enzymes are actually these chemicals that actually help in chemical reactions, okay, to speed up the chemical reactions to help in the digestion of food so that the body can actually absorb the products that we need. Okay, enzymes actually remain unchanged after digestion, okay, because it is there to help food get digested. Okay, but the problem is if we talk about a specific digestive enzyme, then they cannot digest different type of food. Okay, so a protease can only digest protein. Okay, it cannot digest fats. Okay, so they are very specific in their role. Which of the organ is not part of the digestive system? So if you look through again, A is our answer because heart is not part of the digestive system. Question 3, which of part of the digestive system would carbohydrates be chemically digested? Okay, so we are looking for places with enzymes. Okay, so the mouth and the small intestines are parts with which the carbohydrates or starch is digested. Okay, question 4. You want the contractions and relaxation of muscle cells. Okay, so basically parts that move the food along. Okay, so it will be the esophagus, okay, the small intestine and the large intestine. Okay, that's why answer is D. Okay, question 5. Okay, answer is B. Okay, why is it B? Because if you look at this portion, we talk about absorption of food molecules. Okay, so all absorption of food molecules happens in the small intestine. Okay, and large intestine also does some absorption, but absorption of water. It has nothing to do with the food molecules itself. Question 6. In which part of the digestive system does absorption of water take place? Like what I mentioned just now, it only takes place in the large intestine. Question 7. Which of the following best describes what happens in the mouth when food is present? Okay, so basically in the mouth, we know that there is the saliva which contains the enzyme that will digest carbohydrates. Okay, so let's look at the answers. Saliva breaks down fats into smaller soluble substances. This is not true because saliva only contains the amylase, which is there to digest the starch. Okay, saliva enzyme can only act on foods that contain carbohydrates. This is true, like what I just mentioned. Chewing action in the mouth converts starch into simple sugars. This is not true because chewing is a physical digestion. It only breaks up the food into smaller pieces. Okay, and last one, the proteins in the saliva break down proteins into amino acid. This is a problem because saliva does not contain proteins. Question 8. In the human alimentary canal, okay, or in another word, digestive system. Okay, what is the function of the liver? Okay, so the liver is there to only produce bile. Okay, as part for the digestion, but of course the liver has other roles to play in the body. Question 9. What will happen to the digestion of fats if the gallbladder was removed? So the job of the gallbladder is actually to store bile. So if I don't have the gallbladder, then I will not be able to store the bile. If I'm not able to store the bile, then the other part is it won't be able to be injected into the small intestine. So you need to know the function of the bile. Okay, the function of the bile is actually to break up fats into smaller droplets. Okay, so having said that, okay, C would be our best answer, because without that, the fat will not be broken up into smaller droplets, which means the surface area will decrease and affect the speed of digestion of the fat itself. Okay, a smaller surface area exposed will make the digestion slower. Okay, question 10. The list below shows various secretions of the produced by the organs in the digestive system. Okay, which secretion contains protease? Okay, protease means the parts where we actually digest protein. So if you look through the option, bile, no. Bile, the job of bile is to break up fat into smaller fat droplets. Okay, gastric juice, there is, okay, because gastric juice contain proteins that will digest proteins. Okay, so it's found in the stomach. Okay, intestinal juice, yes, okay, because it is actually found in the small intestine. Okay, and small intestine does have enzymes that digest the fats itself. Okay, next one, pancreatic juice produced by the pancreas. Okay, so pancreas also produce some proteins that will help digest the fat into smaller, help to digest the proteins into the amino acids. Okay, last one, saliva. Saliva does not contain any proteins because it contains only amylase. Okay, so moving on to question 11. Okay, so for question 11, okay, you notice down here, amylase will digest starch to become maltose, lipase will digest fats to become fatty acids and glycerol, protease and proteins will digest proteins to give amino acids. So this one, you must commit some of them into memory. Okay, so if you look at question 12, question 12 is actually a simulation of a part of the digestive system. Okay, so there are some clues here. It contains starch solution, it contains glucose, okay, and an enzyme. Okay, so once they say starch solution, once they say glucose, you have to go and think about which parts of the body in the digestive system actually digest starch. Okay, so it is most likely going to be a simulation of the mouth. Okay, so because the mouth is a place where you first digest starch. Okay, but anyway, they are not asking for where it is at the moment. Okay, they are actually asking for the enzyme. Okay, so it is amylase. Okay, so state the part of the alimentary canal that is represented by the whisking tube. So I will say that it is the mouth. Okay, and not the small intestine, because the small intestine would be others as well. Okay, but mouth is just focusing on starch. Okay, part C. Okay, state the change in observation if the test tube with the whisking tube is buoyed before it's left to stand. So do remember that the enzyme only works at a certain temperature as well, okay, in particular body temperature. So if I boil it, it will become too hot. So when it becomes too hot, the enzyme will not be able to work well because it's being destroyed. Okay, so state the change in observation. So if it's being destroyed, that means the starch solution will not be digested into glucose. So if I perform an iodine test, this will turn into dark blue, okay, or purple. Okay, so state the change in observation. So if it's being destroyed, that means the starch solution will not be digested into glucose. So if I perform an iodine test, this will turn into dark blue, okay, or purple. Okay, so state the change in observation. So if it's being destroyed, that means the starch solution will not be digested into glucose. So if I perform an iodine test, this will turn into dark blue, okay, or purple. Okay, Yep, so that is the answer. So you write something on your own. Okay, so let's look at this one. Okay, this is a diagram of the human digestive system. So some things to take note. The liver looks like this, a little bit like a triangle. Okay, so the mouth and the esophagus, I do not need to explain. Stomach is over here in E. Okay, now if you look at F, F looks like a leaf-like structure. So just remember, pancreas looks like a leaf. Okay, well, on the other hand, D, okay, is this small sac over here beside the liver. So this one is going to be our gallbladder. Okay, H is the small intestine, G is the large intestine, I is the I and J, you must be very careful, okay, because they represent different things. I represents the rectum, J represents the anus. So let's go through the answer again. Pancreas is actually F, gallbladder is D, small intestine is H. Okay, so it's very straightforward here. Okay, so part B over here, very straightforward as well. You want both physical and chemical digestion, so it must have parts that help to break things down chemically, as well as break up things, break up the food, okay, through more physical means. So A is the mouth. Mouth have the teeth to break up the food, as well as the amylase to digest the starch, which is the chemical digestion. E here is actually the stomach. Yes, E here is actually the stomach if you look at the diagram. Okay, so the stomach actually churns the food, so it does have physical digestion. Okay, on top of that, it has the protease, okay, which will digest the protein. Okay, last one will be the H. H is the small intestine. Okay, so very quickly, the small intestine digests all the food, okay, into the products. But at the same time, it does not have a physical action to break up the food, but it does receive bile from the gallbladder. So because of that, it will be able to do physical digestion by breaking up fats into smaller parts. Okay, so that all digestion will end at the small intestine, and last but not least, the one that produces bile is actually the liver. Okay, so state the difference between physical and chemical digestion. Please state it out clearly. Okay, I'll leave it to you to go and figure that out. Okay, so explain why it's necessary for food to be digested in our body. So this one came from the from the slides as well. Okay, basically, food molecules are too big to enter the partial permeable cell membrane. So in order for that to be passing through, in order for the food molecules to be passing through, it needs to be in a smaller form. So the main job of the digestion is to basically break up the big food molecule chains into very small ones, so that it can actually pass through the cell membrane. Okay. Okay, explain why glucose is suitable to be injected into the bloodstream. Okay, so we know that glucose is the final product of carbohydrate. Okay, so we need it because it is then able to pass through the cell membrane easily. So people who are actually on these glucose drips, okay, will receive them. Why? Because the glucose molecules are actually small enough for it to pass through the cell membrane. Okay, so repetition here. Okay, next one. E part 1. Okay, it has named the digestive juice secreted by structure E, which is the stomach. Okay, so we are talking about gastric juice here. Okay, gastric juice contain hydrochloric acid. The main job of the hydrochloric acid is to kill bacteria. Okay, that may enter the body through the digestive system. Okay, but on top of that, because the hydrochloric acid is acidic, it provides acidic conditions for the enzyme to work with. Okay, so each enzyme works well at different pH as well. So for the stomach, the enzyme works well in an acidic condition. Okay, F, state the similarity between the functions of G and H. G is a large intestine, H is the small intestine. So the main, if you look through all of them, the main similarity will be they absorb, okay, food molecules into the body, into the bloodstream, sorry. Okay, sorry, not food molecules, because small intestine doesn't absorb food molecules. So they do absorb things, okay, the nutrients that the body actually need. Okay, part 2 state the difference between G and H. So like what we say, basically G is the large intestine, it only absorbs water. Okay, on the other hand, H, the small intestine, other than absorbing, it also digests food. So that is actually a difference already. Okay, suggest what may happen if G is removed. Okay, so again, G is a large intestine. So if you do not have a large intestine, what will happen? Basically is what was mentioned in front. Okay, the body will not absorb enough water. Okay, and the last page itself. Okay, so if you look at this particular question, they do give you two different tables. Okay, and for the fruit jam, you notice there's a high concentration of carbohydrate. Okay, on the other hand, peanut butter has a few different nutrients there. Okay, so state the main end products of digestion of the fruit jam. So fruit jam has only carbohydrate. Final product is actually the glucose. Okay, so answer will be glucose. Okay, but for peanut butter, it contains fat, carbohydrate, and protein. Okay, so for carbohydrate, we are very clear it will be producing glucose. So that's our answer here. Okay, for protein, okay, it will be digested into amino acids. Okay, and last but not least, the fats will be digested into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, describe how the stomach will digest the peanut butter. Remember, the stomach does churn the food. So when it churns the food, it is actually breaking up the peanut butter into smaller pieces. Okay, and on top of that, there is protease inside the stomach, and the protease will be able to digest the proteins into amino acids. Okay, and the last question, if a person has his gallbladder removed, okay, which of these two foods should he be avoiding to eat? So recall again, gallbladder contains bile. So if it contains bile, what is the job of the bile? Is to break up fat droplets into smaller fat droplets. So with that in mind, if you look through, okay, anything that contains fat will be something that you have to avoid in this particular question. So fruit jam, you do not need to avoid because fat is 0 gram. But on the other hand, peanut butter, you notice that fat is actually 53 gram. Okay, so that's why is our answer. So the person actually need to avoid peanut butter. Okay, why? Because it contains fats. Okay, and since there is a lack of bile, it's not able to help to break up fat into smaller droplets. So explain that part as well. Okay, so without the gallbladder to store bile, okay, the body might not have enough, might not be able to digest fats easily. Okay, so with that, I'll end this particular video. Okay, thank you for watching. Okay.